Hello, I'm Jack, and I would like to talk about transcending ego. I made a video, this is my second video, about ego, and a lot of that ties into this, but I might not have made clear how we get beyond it, how we get beyond playing the ego game. But there are some things that I need to bring up again in terms of ego in order to get beyond it. So we have to understand what it is, which is, to me, it's everything. Yes, it sounds backwards because most of the time we say it's these things, but it's not those things. So that's probably right there, you found ego. I mean, as soon as we say there's no ego, or as soon as we say that's not ego, then we found our ego. I don't have ego. That's my ego. So it's like empty space. There's no such thing. There's always something occupying that space. The question is, what is it, and what are we focused on? Our consciousness is only so big, so usually we're missing out on something else in life. We don't see it as being there, or we prefer something. So wherever our consciousness goes, that's our preference, and our preference is essentially our ego. I prefer this over that. I prefer the left lane over the right lane. That's my ego saying I prefer left over right, and someone else's ego will say I prefer right over left. And so then there's really doesn't have to be that battle between them. So we can do that with any duality. And once we realize both sides, that's when we can transcend that ego. But the hard part is, when we get bigger and bigger and bigger in the scope of the duality, it gets harder to see the opposite side because we see that one side as being the all. So that's the way I describe it in terms of empty space. There's no such thing, because if there's nothing there, then how are we experiencing it? So that means there must be something there. So ego is the same way, or I view it the same way, is that it doesn't matter which way we turn, that's going to be our ego. I want, I prefer. It's an easy way of finding it. Just see those words together. I want to make this video. That's my ego. I don't want to make this video. That's my ego. I want to take the life of someone else so I can eat. That's my ego. I want to give my life to something else so they can eat. That's my ego. Most of the time we just look at taking as being ego, but not giving, because selfishness is bad. Ego. Giving, oh, it's good. Caring, considerate. But really, they're both ego. They both can have ego. So it really just depends on how we go about both of them. So what I want to do in terms of transcending ego is to show how to move beyond that game, because that's what it is. It's a game. It's a duality game. And so when we realize that there doesn't need to be a game, that's when we can move beyond it, because we don't have to battle between what is and isn't ego, which there are a lot of, in the spiritual community, there's a lot of talk about what is and isn't ego. And so then it plays that game, because then there are people that are like, well, how dare you call these things ego? Those are the things I do in life. And then they're saying the same thing about them. Well, look at you doing all your stuff. And then they're saying, oh, no, my stuff's not ego, yours is. And then it keeps going back and forth. So if we want to be done with the ego game and trying to figure out what is and isn't ego, it's all ego. And then you don't have to worry about it. I mean, you can still worry about it if you want, but it's essentially what it is. When we realize there are no rules to the game's pretty much over, because we realize those rules are made up by other people, and it's just however they want to play that game. So it's the same thing with ego. Rules are made up, and we made them up. So we're essentially saying what ego is. We're creating that game. So a visualization that I want to provide is in sacred geometry. It's one of the fundamentals, which So it's based on a triangle. Triangle is the simplest geometric shape that can sustain a circle. 3 corners, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. So it's an equilateral triangle. But you got to polarize it because this universe is built off of duality, which is energy, and energy is everything. So this whole universe is built off of duality, positive and negative. So we have positive, then we gotta have the negative. We gotta flip it upside down. And so if you overlap those two triangles, you get 6 points, and that makes the Star of David. So that's what I want to show, is that we have, let's say this top pyramid. Our society favors that pyramid much more than this pyramid. So we're looking at this pyramid, and at the bottom you have the clerks and cashiers. So I'm gonna use this this sacred geometry in terms of business, just one aspect of life. We can apply this to any other aspects, but I'm going to use business right now. So we have the clerks at the bottom, the managers, let's say directors, executives, and then at the top you got CEOs, or the CEO. So most of the time, the clerks and cashiers are, there are a lot of them. That's at the base. There are a lot of those positions, and they're usually looking up, saying, "Oh, you're greater than me," and we keep going up and up and up, and there's always someone above them. So we're all looking up at the CEO, like, "Oh my God, it's the CEO! He's here! He's here! He's really here!" And so everyone's so usually the lower you are on the pyramid, then yeah, you probably get more and more frightened, because the way we see that CEO is, without you, I would not be here. I would not have this paycheck. And then the CEO could be looking down saying, yes, without me, you would not be here. You should be thanking me. You should be praising me. You should be giving me all your energy and worship, because I'm the one who brought you here. I'm the one who created you and created your position and is giving you all these resources so you can go out and live your daily life. So, and they're saying, yes, I don't know what I would do without you. You're my everything now, in terms of work. But, not everything. But, so that's the way we're looking at it. Which is one way, but we have to also polarize it. And that flip side, those clerks and cashiers would be saying, without us, you would not be here, CEO, because we're doing all the work that you don't want to do. We're doing all the mundane activity that gets people in and out, gets the customers, and we're essentially bringing in the money that you're paying us with. So without us, you would not be here. Without the clerks, cashiers, janitors, and low-level managers, and everyone below the CEO. But from this angle, they're all above the CEO. They're all up here at the top. And the CEO is looking up to them, saying, without you all, I would not be able to do what I do and make the money that I make and enjoy the business that I enjoy. But how often do we do that? We're getting better with it, but there are still people that still only look down. And there are some CEOs that are now starting to look up and praise the other side, praise the clerks and cashiers, giving them more money, more or higher wages and more benefits, and looking at them as equal people. Because we're all just human beings. That's really what it comes down to. That's the equality. We're all still human beings. We just do different things. So we all play a role. I mean, for example, janitors. How often do CEOs attribute their multi-million-dollar deals to the janitors? I want to say probably not that often. But here's the reality of it. Yes, the janitors weren't sitting in that meeting making the deal under such extreme pressures, but they were providing a space so that these executives could make those multi-million-dollar deals under extreme pressures. They were cleaning the toilets so the CEOs don't have to worry about going to the bathroom if it's going to be a shitstorm. Yeah. And same with the offices. They're cleaning up the office space so that the CEOs and the executives don't have to worry about paper trails everywhere and whatever is just laying around. You know, they make a clean environment so they don't have to. So the executives and CEOs don't have to worry about anything. So they can focus right on the multi-million-dollar deal. So essentially, the janitor is making multi-million-dollar deals. They're just playing a role in that multi-million-dollar deal. And so that's this side that people seem to miss out on. Most of the time, we just look at it this way. And we say, janitors, I'm looking down at you. I can find a million other janitors. You didn't help me in making that multi-million-dollar deal. I did. So I'm going to pay myself $1 million and I'll give you 2 cents. So it's very lopsided if it's only that one side of the triangle without the bottom. And we can see that in other areas of life. We can use this model. We can see it in academia, where the professor is the God program, God complex, plays that God complex, where the student has no real say in what is right or wrong. It's whatever the professor says. And then if the student questions the professor, the professor will say, well, do you want to get an A on this test? Because if you don't repeat it back the way that I told you, then you're not going to get an A, because I'm the one who's passing that judgment on to you. And so I'm in control of your life at that point. We could see it in politics or government, where, you know, it's military, where you can't question your commanders and chiefs, because they're saying, how dare you question me? You're supposed to do exactly what I tell you, no questions asked. You just follow orders. And they say, yes, sir. And then they look, and then there's no questioning. There's no real, well, Sergeant, I just don't really feel like that could be the right thing. Maybe there's another thing. And they're just like, how dare you? So it's that God complex, and it just keeps going up and up and up that pyramid. And so we're essentially just doing what they say. Only if we're following it this way, we can still go about this way. But we're shifting in that direction where we're realizing more of this. But it's still a lot of this, and we can see it in religion too. Don't want to leave that one out. The God complex, doing the hierarchy, and we can just follow that same structure that I mentioned with academia and government and corporations or business. So they follow the same sort of program. We just don't really see it that way. But that's how we transcend ego, is realizing the polar opposites. And most of the time we just see one side rather than the other. And so it makes for, like I said, a lopsided perception, a lopsided reality. And so we need to have this side now, which is where we're transitioning to. This is the shift. And we realize the CEOs and executives are realizing they should be also grateful and worship the cashiers and clerks. So it's not just cashiers and clerks worshiping the executives and CEOs and praising them and saying, it's whatever you guys want to do, just tell us what you want to do. Because yes, without the CEOs, they wouldn't have a job. But without the clerks, the CEOs wouldn't have a job. So that's really balancing ego. That's balancing duality. That's transcending the ego game. And we don't have to fight the way we fight. But we have to get there. That's the hard part. That getting there usually takes the fight. And I made another video about that, which is war, which is a conflict, a necessary conflict. So, you know, if there is that imbalance, usually there's someone that's going to play the opposite side, and they're going to fight for rebalance. So really the balance comes in after the fight, and that's the hard part. Most of the time we don't want the fight, but that's what we do. Or that seems to be how life goes. So right now we're shifting, and we're standing up, and we're creating that conflict to show that the cashiers and clerks are still human beings too, just as the CEOs. So that's where the equality comes in, and that's where it's a balanced system between the positive and negative. So that's how we get past ego. Maybe it's a little bit longer explanation than what you wanted, but I feel like all that was necessary. My ego says all that was necessary, so that's just my preference saying it needed to be this long. I'm just prolonging this this egoic explanation, but ego, like I said, it's everywhere, so there's really no limitation when we can see it that way. It doesn't really affect us the same way. We don't have to keep a checklist of what is and isn't ego, because we realize it's all ego, and that's all right. So we're just being us, and that's really what it comes down to. Once we're done playing the ego game, that's what being us is about. We're not trying to follow a checklist or commandments or rules or policies at that point, because we're just feeling what we need to feel in terms of one way of the ego or the other, or the duality. So those are just the set of experiences that we need to experience and feel in terms of the energies. So that's how we're going to go about it. So I hope you can take something away from this. As always, thank you for doing what you do. I definitely appreciate it, and enjoy.